One of the most common product mistakes I see almost any sized company make is not talking to customers or target users enough. This goes for very large companies, but equally and surprisingly for startups as well. I'm constantly surprised when I dig in and start working with companies at how long some companies can go. Founders, CTOs, product managers, how long they can go without speaking to their actual target users or a customer who's using their product. I'm really constantly surprised by that. There's no excuses anymore. Everybody can get access to users, their customers or target users very, very easily. The barrier to doing that is almost zero. So there's no excuse not to be doing this, and it needs to be one of the things that people spend and allocate time to. I think people often overthink product market fit. I have a very simplistic definition of it when it comes to product market fit and deciding whether or not you have it. If you take your proposition to someone who fits your ICP, your ideal customer profile, or who should be a target user of your product, and you can predictably get them to get interested in the proposition, listen to a pitch, and try the product, and you can predictably do that, then I think that you are 80 to 90% of the way towards having product market fit. I think companies need to look at a couple of things when trying to solve for product market fit and optimize product market fit. Really, it's two metrics for me. It is new user adoption and user churn. And you should be looking at both of those kind of independently, because there are often very different reasons why someone would choose to use your product and why someone would then choose to churn out or leave your product. So firstly, new user acquisition or finding new users. I think if you can predictably get people to try your product, to go through a trial, to have some usage milestones, to set up or verify or take the first high value action in the product, and you can predictably do that without ridiculous acquisition costs. In fact, hopefully you're seeing your acquisition costs trending down when it comes to these things. Hopefully you're getting a lot of organic interest and that's converting. That is a very, very important measure. So looking for the friction in acquisition. And some of that's going to be very objective and measurable, and some of it is going to be more of a subjective call. But hopefully you can keep track of these things over time. Whether you're B2C or B2B, you should establish your kind of indicators of friction in the acquisition and the trial process. On the other end, we've got churn. And I think churn is even more important when it comes to product market fit. I think a lot of companies mistakenly believe that they have product market fit because they're able to acquire a lot of users. But it's only if you can really retain those users that you truly have product market fit. And so you need to be measuring and tracking churn maniacally. You need to be focused on that every single day. It's possibly more important than new user acquisition. So looking at indicators of churn, looking at levels of churn, when people churn out, trying to survey or find out why they're churning out. I often, with B2B businesses, encourage companies to put in your contract that they agree to doing an exit interview if they choose to stop using the service. And most companies are willing to do that. And that's stated behavior, but you should also include observed behavior. How are people using the product the way you would expect them to? Are they using it and engaging with it as frequently as they do? Your product needs to be instrumented to measure all these things. You should know what a really highly engaged user looks like in your data, and you should know what a user that's about to churn looks like in your data. And you should be flagging those and catching those and trying to fill in any gaps or holes that you have in the product to reduce churn. I think there's one trait above all else that I see in really strong founders and really strong product leaders, and that's focus. I think when you're in an early stage startup, you can be pulled in a million directions. There's so much noise and so many demands and so many stakeholders that you're trying to satisfy. And I see so many founders and product people kind of trying lots of little things, being distracted by what the competition is doing. being distracted by solving for fundraising milestones. So they will make product or strategy decisions to solve for the next fundraise as opposed to a product decision to solve for acquiring more users and creating more value. Now, I'm not naive, and I understand that that's often a consideration when in a reality of being in an early stage business. But I see too many startups for whom the goal is the next fundraise and not product adoption milestones, product use milestones, user milestones. And they get incredibly distracted. And at some point in that process, the music's going to stop and there isn't going to be a chair for them. They're going to get caught out because they've spent all their time on vanity metrics and inflating kind of the perception and the optics of what they're doing, and not creating genuine value. I think in early stage business, companies should be, especially pre-product market fit, companies should be experimenting a lot. They should be building and prototyping very quickly to try and acquire signal as to whether or not they have the right mix in their proposition. And this means moving quickly, not over-engineering software, not spending 6 months to do an experiment, but really focusing everything around getting signal from the market. At some point, if you're lucky, and this is the path that all successful startups have taken, you hit on that product market fit and you really start to accelerate your user acquisition. And the inclination or the intuition at this point is to run as fast as you possibly can. And this is what 9 out of 10 startups do. And what they discover kind of 6, 12, 18 months, at some point they will discover that they can no longer kind of scale their product, their platform for all those users. And the quality of their service starts to degrade, their ability to ship features starts to fall off materially. I see many companies, in fact, grind to a halt with their ability to deliver because they've got so many pieces of tech debt and prototypes and everything that they've strung together into a proposition. And that'll work for the first handful of customers. But if you continue to be successful, it will collapse. It will cease to serve you and your users. And then you have to make the incredibly painful decision to stop and rebuild. And that can take 3, 6, 9, 12 months before you're able to do that. So I suppose my advice is to encourage you, once you've got that product market fit, be very thoughtful about how fast you race forward versus how much you invest in shoring up and rationalizing the platform so that it can sustain that scale. I'm not saying it's easy, and it's incredibly hard. It's why most companies don't do it very well. But now that you've heard it, try not to make the mistake. I'm not aligned to either of those. I am aligned to the ideology of spending as little time and effort to get as much signal as you possibly can. So building, in fact, as little as you possibly can. I think early stage businesses use their most expensive resource, engineering, in the least efficient way to test ideas. And that costs you so much money and it costs you a lot of time. If you use your engineering team to build out a feature, and that might take 2 weeks or 4 weeks or 6 weeks, and it turns out to be a mediocre feature that's not really compelling and it's not really convincing people to try your product, that time is expensive and painful to lose. And if you do that a couple times, you suddenly lost half a year. So I'm a big fan of not building as little as possible, prototyping, interviewing, getting scale in any way that you can. A signal rather, in any way that you can, and then once you've got that signal, that's when you go out and build quickly. Honestly, it's always been Slack. I mean, I just thought Slack, I don't even think, by the way, that it was intentional with Slack, but Slack built a product that employees, particularly dev teams, within a company desperately wanted to use. It solved a lot of their problems, and Slack did an amazing job of providing all the right integrations to slot seamlessly into engineering workflows. They really, really knew their user. And they allowed these teams to use their product for free. And people thought it was magical. And Slack has been, the success that it has their business model is extorting money out of large enterprises who are worried about what's going on with all these messaging systems inside their company. They've got governance, they've got regulation, they've got kind of risk and exposure and all the things that could be being said and exchanged and traded within their own company, within these messaging systems. And so the features that enterprises pay for are features that allow them to restrict what people do, kind of user roles, version, like logs of the actual messages and things like that. Like that's what companies pay for. They don't pay for the core proposition that engineers and internal teams love. They extort money out of Slack extorts money out of those companies so that they can protect themselves from any potential risk of the use of their product internally. And I've always really admired that because it's absolutely brilliant. I don't know if it was intentional or not, but hey, it still worked.